Namaskar. I'm Supriya Mahabaleshwarkar, co-convener INTAC Pune. I welcome you all on behalf of INTAC, the Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage, Natural Heritage Division, INTAC Pune Chapter, Maharashtra Vriksha Samvardhini, and BIF Development Research Foundation. Before we begin, I would like to thank all of you for your overwhelming response yesterday for the inauguration session. We not only had our Zoom capacity full in the morning during the session, but also a lot of visitors for the YouTube live link, as well as later in the day for those who couldn't make it yesterday. So we are thankful for all of you for showering all this love for this interesting subject. And we look forward to all of you joining us throughout this week as we celebrate India's traditional water systems. Yasya mapa paricharaha Samanira ahoratre apramadam ksharanti. Sano bhumir bhuri dhara payo duham atho ukshatu varchasa. As the Bhumi Sukta says, salutations to Mother Earth. In her the water flow on all sides, day and night, unceasingly. May she, the Mother Earth, give us the milk of her abundant streams and moisten us with its splendor present in water. On occasion of World Water Week 2022, INTAC Maharashtra Vriksha Samvardhini and BIF are organizing this series of online talks. The series aims to create awareness about the importance of traditional water systems of India with a focus on step wells. India has a rich heritage of water conservation through its numerous traditional water systems. They represent the knowledge associated with them, along with the diversity of geographical settings and culture. Understanding these systems could lead to important inputs in dealing with the water crisis, thus leading to a more sustainable and equitable water management for the humans as well as more than human beings on Earth. We are blessed to have with us Kalpana Rameshji with us today. I take this opportunity to introduce her here. Thank you, Kalpana ji, for joining. Kalpana Ramesh, fondly called as Water Warrior, is an environmentalist advocating water conservation and restoration. An interior designer by profession, she was vexed with the city's dependency on water tankers and cans and thus started working towards eliminating water woes by implementing rainwater harvesting at her residence and later transforming into block by block for the city. Her commitment to exemplary practice has demonstrated by her unique ability of connecting her profession and passion for water and environmental conservation. Kalpana is also a core member of Society for Advancement of Human Endeavors. Her current social startup, the Rainwater Project, provides sustainable integrated water management solutions in public and private sectors, along with lake and water restoration and conservation. She is part of the Hyderabad Design Forum, a stepwell documentation initiative. As a lead of Blue Hyderabad initiative in collaboration with various organizations, she worked on restoring the dead Kudikunta Lake. Under Blue Hyderabad campaigns, she identified significant traditional and irrigation wells that lost their context due to rapid urbanization. Restoring such traditional wells helps in connecting communities and spaces by reviving traditional water harvesting structures. She has successfully revived 5 significant step wells. She has received many recognitions with many prestigious awards like Water Heroes by Jal Ministry, SCSC Awards, HMA Women Entrepreneur of the Year 2021, and High C Award. Recently, she has been awarded for her commitment of conserving water by the IIID Regional Hyderabad Chapter. Thank you, all of you. Kalpana Rameshji.
Hi, thank you, Supriya, for that introduction, and really glad to be speaking on this platform today. and share what I have learned or attempted to do for water in probably the last 10 years. So I'd like to share my journey. And what I share here today may not be so theoretical, but it's actually what we can do on ground and what are those challenges on ground and how to overcome them and what are those success stories. So I would share my screen. Just give me a moment. Can you see my screen? Supriya, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, I'll just make it full screen.
It's still not on the full screen mode. Now it's on full screen.
I did that. Yeah, I just did that.
Thank you.
Welcome. So I want to call it the challenge of water conservation. Though our focus today is on step wells, I want to call it, I'm someone who works on the entire ecosystem, and step wells is one part of that story. So this is one slide I want all of you to focus on. This could be anywhere in India. We often see such sites, right, which is a dump yard could be, or just a pile of garbage, and we often get frustrated, or we try to tweet, or try to do something, but often we don't succeed in doing anything. We just walk away, and this may be in front of our house, and we are not doing anything about it. But this was last year in June, when I just walked to this site, and look what we've done with it today. See what we've unearthed out of a garbage pile. It was just nothing but a garbage pile. So here's my story. I would like to speak about where did my journey begin for water, because I can't call myself a water warrior 10 years ago. But what is it that changed my mindset for water? What is it that made me what used to bother me, but I didn't do anything about it? Um, I took it one step at a time to figure this, or let's say crack this problem or challenge we face today as India. So I was, very inclined to nature as an interior designer. I come from an architecture background, so a lot of natural light, all this played an important role in any of my design stories. But when it comes to sustainability, yes, sustainability was understood in theory, like for most of us. But I was also just another citizen. But in my house, okay, I tried to do gray recycling, tried to do rainwater harvesting, but all of this started from a need for why are we even buying tankers? When we moved from the US in 2000, most of the communities in Hyderabad that we've lived in, more than 6-7 months in a year, we are buying tankers. So when I tested the tanker water, I don't know how many of you actually can test the, have tested the tanker water, but I've understood that there's several issues with tanker water. Registered tankers has a lot of chlorine or variable, amounts of chlorine in it, and unregistered tankers even had E. coli in it. So that's where the journey actually began to create a sustainable home, which is tanker free. And today it's almost 12 years, and we still didn't need a tanker. And we live in the central business district of Hyderabad, which is Gachibowli, if you're familiar with the city. So we do a lot of growing, there's gray recycling, there is rainwater harvesting. So everything that began with a need to erase tankers in a home, I was able to achieve with this sustainable home. Then I wanted to spread this knowledge within my community and wanted to, get onto several platforms and started working towards water, because I saw a success story, which is at my home and then the community. And I wanted to see where else can I, sort of replicate these stories. In Crux, this is what I understood after going to several, rainwater harvesting workshops. I even attended them in other cities other than Hyderabad. This is what I understood, that every city has a similar problem, which we've not tried to solve holistically. There's high levels of urbanization that's happening, rapid urbanization. That's 2020 and 2050 for you, and that's a map of Hyderabad. You can see we're almost going to develop as a population. As a city, we are going to grow more than 60-70%. And our groundwater extraction has, multiplied like, it has become so much. We are, of course, the largest groundwater extractors in the world. But as cities, most of the city, if you see the map of Hyderabad, almost 80% of the city is, we are over mining groundwater. Nobody is looking at putting back this groundwater, and we are importing water from rivers today. Almost most cities today, we get our water from rivers. That means we are already not sustainable, and we are having to depend on river water. But how long is this going to support us as our population grows? So the time is not enough. We have to work towards this problem right away. And you see the sad state of our lakes and wells and step wells, which are in a terrible state. I mean, these are actually these there's sort of buckets that we have in our city, which can hold a lot of water and reduce our urban flooding, improve groundwater, reduce our pollution. But this is not even understood today. And urban flooding, we go through this cycle year after year. Summers, we buy tankers, and in monsoons, you see a lot of urban flooding. We just tweet and we think our job is done, and we don't break this cycle. So after understanding this, I wanted to see how I can work in a public space. I wanted to pick up a water body. So I started working around a small lake near my house. First time I realized around my house, about 1.5 square kilometers, I found almost 14 lakes. I mean, till then, I didn't even pay attention to what is a lake or what is a garden, because most lakes today look like gardens or dump yards. So I started working on a community, in a local community, and started creating a success story for water restoration. I understood what are the threads that I need to work with, who are the stakeholders, how do I get a map on ground as to where, what is the land area for this lake, where are the encroachments, what are the problems, how many inlets, how many outlets, and started one by one tackling the problem, and understood that the ownerships are many. Even in the government, a lake or a water body, the ownerships belong to several departments, and you have to tie in all of them to create a success story. So a lot of learnings on ground, almost 6 years on ground. Then I slowly started working towards common area rainwater harvesting, which also created a lot of success stories. More than 200, 300 boards today are working well because of these efforts that we've done in common areas, in colonies and such. So I started understanding that working at a local level is creating a success story, and I'm able to connect one-on-one with people, and I'm able to understand their problems, and I'm able to understand what solutions are there. And because in our country there's nothing called public opinion, right? Here we have to work with the public, understand, and most of these water bodies, you're working with people on the wrong footing and getting them to do something right. So the challenges, what are those challenges in that? So if you take a small locality or a block, let's say, you have rainwater harvesting that can be done on roads. You can see a lot of water that comes out of flyovers. You have wells, you have lakes, you have traditional water bodies, because Hyderabad is a heritage city. We have traditional water bodies as well. We have a lot of opportunities to do rainwater harvesting, and understanding water in a block seemed much easier. What is the rainfall we receive? What is the amount of pipe supply we get? What is the amount of water that we extract from the ground? And what is the amount of wastewater we generate? How much we recycle? How much we don't recycle? What is ethical recharge? What is not ethical recharge? All of these learnings at a local level, I was able to understand after working almost 6 to 8 years on ground, leading efforts for an NGO or as a design studio. I started focusing on water. Never was it that I ever focused on water, but now I started focusing on water in all my design projects. So fixing one block at a time seemed like a plan. I mean, this is something um, I was inspired by the super block model, where they tried to solve their traffic problem. They took one block at a time, and they started to, the inner block they pedestrianized, the inner part of the block, and the outside periphery became motorized. So they started, solving this problem by fixing one block. This I'm talking for traffic, but I wanted to create some such block model for water in the city. So I happened to break down the city of Hyderabad into 98 smaller micro watersheds. And this with the help of a startup called Kainos in IIIT Hyderabad. Today, I'm also part of CIE as a startup. So it's great to connect with these people and even understand there are people that can actually do this, because I was finding a solution to break down into smaller blocks, because a local solution is what I wanted to start working towards for water. Because with a citywide approach, I tried working with the water board, I tried working with the municipality, but seemed like there are so many layers of challenges. Nobody is able to focus on this one problem, because their problems are multitude, and the problems keep shifting as daily. And so I couldn't find anyone that's focused on a long term and to work with me to figure out a solution. This is a block that I started working towards. This is the first block, which is called the Kondapur Masjid Banda area. If you are familiar with Hyderabad, you would know this. It's closer to the central business district again. So a well restoration that we did, a lake restoration that we did, the common area rainwater harvesting that we did, everything together sort of brought back so much groundwater back. People started understanding that rainwater harvesting is creating a success story, and how a well restoration that we did here, I'll show you more pictures of this well later, where completely from a dump yard, how it became a functional well, and a lot of storm water, more than 1 crore liters of storm water, which was actually going off as an urban flood, now started getting collected in this step well. We started slowly working with the government, making it sort of a rain garden. And today we are going to make it a proper full-fledged rain garden, working step by step and creating a cleaner lake, and sewage, getting people to remove sewage out of the lakes, and showcasing that instantly the lake gets cleaner when you do this. And also understanding that how much of storm channels in the city today are all hybrid with sewage. But if you start restoring, or let's say rejuvenating these water systems, look at where it was before and what it has become now. So it improves health. I mean, health impact is something very big. I mean, most of these polluted water bodies, all the settlements around these water bodies, the bore wells are polluted. If you stay right next to a well that is polluted, it could be a source well, it could be a recharge kind of a well according to the strata that it is in. But there is pollution reaching to our bore wells, and 60% of this water is what we drink today. So all this sense of how to build a cleaner catchment, the cleanest, however clean the catchment, we need to look at what are those behavior change that we need to work towards to create a cleaner catchment. Because the quality of water in any block, in anywhere in our country, or maybe even the world, it depends on what is the quality of the catchment. How have we maintained the catchment? So it is connected to plastics, it's connected to a whole lot of things. While working towards lake restorations, common area rainwater harvesting, and working towards rainwater harvesting for industries, hotels, many other large projects, we also realized, that wells are something we are ignoring in a big way. Because being part of HDF, Hyderabad Design Forum, headed by architect Yashwant Ramurthy, I learned a lot about traditional water bodies. The interest, that I developed is tremendous. I mean, through 4.5 years of work with them, actually going and finding these wells on ground, getting those stories, and understanding what was water earlier in their context and what is it today, and how they've ignored them. So all of these started, got me an urge that I should start doing this in our own city while I'm working on the block model. I should get step wells also as part of this block model and not ignore these traditional water structures, because last year what I see today, this year, if I go in what I have mapped in 21, I don't even find the well anymore. It's quickly built upon. So I thought raising the voice for these temples in terms of conservation, while HDF and is making a great effort on documenting these lost temples of Telangana. I wanted to also start conserving, because if we didn't conserve at a faster pace, we are losing them, is something I really understood. And I started working towards stepwell restoration. And in the city, in an urban area, it's extremely challenging how to understand. So when I went around the city, understanding wells, I found a lot of these abandoned wells. Now, ours is a river city. Hyderabad is a river city, and the river that we have is the Musi, which is extremely polluted today. Sadly, it's really polluted. These wells that dotted, along the river also helped rejuvenate the river, and also it was a way or method to provide water for the community. They could draw water from here. I found a lot of wells like this. I started understanding, and one of my friend, Madhu Voteri, she's a conservation architect. She happened to send this clip to me, where 2,000 years ago, along river zones, this is along River Vaigai in Madurai, you can see these recharge systems which were made of clay, and imagine those days when water was not scarce. They still made these systems to also recharge. When they're drawing water, they also made sure they recharged. So the understanding of groundwater along the river helps improve groundwater, but groundwater recharge helps the river also, is something I understood by walking across these wells along the Musi. There's a well called Bapugat which got restored last year. That's another success story along the river Musi. But I understood there are many such abandoned wells, and the purpose was not just to draw water but also to recharge and keep the river perennial over years. But today, even this knowledge is lost, and they're all abandoned. You see the river Musi, exactly at this point, you see how much of the river we've lost today. And they were cleaner. I mean, this river was much, much cleaner, even I think about 30, 40 years ago. The last 25 years, the kind of deterioration that has happened to this river is just unbelievable. Chemical effluents, sewage from colonies, and all of these settlements around the Musi. You see a number of them. And most of the bore wells there along the Musi, if you actually test the borewell water, they're all polluted, because what's happening with the Musi is also getting into these bore wells, because nobody cares to recharge rainwater. If you recharge rainwater, there's a sort of pushback of this polluted water. You start putting more clean water into the, so we started working with the municipality to get them to understand that, we need to restore our wells too. And you see these number of wells, there are almost 70 of them that we found, reservoirs and bowlies. There's like almost like you can read here 87 bowlies, of which we didn't even find one bowli existing today. There was only one in a city government college, which we went for a rainwater harvesting visit and proposal. We took interest to understand that one well we have to restore, and there's a high court complex right next to it. There were a few wells there as well. Those are all gone. So it's very sad to see our traditional knowledge and this system of how recharge happened along the river systems. And this is all not understood at all. I mean, everything is erased, everything is gone. Imagine of 87 bowlies, there are barely 3 or 4 that is left. Most of them are under buildings. Most of them are built upon, encroached, or there's no way to restore even. So we started also an effort to start mapping more wells within the city and across Telangana also. HDF has done a great job from a list of 33 wells that we had as HDF. When we started our work as HDF, we've mapped more than 200. But today, with this Google form that we created and across Telangana and even in the city, the only reason is we don't want to lose them. We want to map as soon as possible, get most of the wells on the map so that we can make an effort in those districts as well. So we have about, almost 400 wells today, 400 plus wells that we found. And still every day we have, people uploading the maps. So let me show you some success stories that we've created in Hyderabad and working with districts in the peri-urban areas. So this is a well called Gachibowli. Gachibowli is known world over for its IT industry in Hyderabad, but this area is named after this humble well. It took us 2 years to even find this well because most wells we found in Gachibowli didn't have the lime. There's still a debate that there are two other wells which could be the original Gachibowli well. But Gach means lime and Bauli is well. So this well, when I first went and saw this well, a person from UN Habitat connected me to this masjid committee members, and this is you see the top middle picture. That's what I saw. So where is the well was a question mark. I mean, it's completely filled up. It's right next to the masjid where in every religion we celebrate water, whether it is masjid or whether it is a church or whether it's a temple, every religion we celebrate water. But right next to these religious institutions also, we see such sad stories. We see that, is it like it's very hypocritic, right? We are very reverent. Every puja doesn't start without an invocation of energies in water. You don't walk into a mosque and do prayers without doing wuzu, without cleansing yourself with water. So when there's so much importance to water, why are we ignoring is something a question that often comes to me, that why are we ignoring, and why is this double standard? When we walk out of our home, we don't see water the way we should see it, because all of this water is an invisible story. Now, I wanted to create these success stories and make it visible and see how it works for them. So we were able to create this success story. A complete garbage-filled well today has water in it, and it has improved bore wells around. The masjid rooftop water, we connected to it. There's a madrasa next to it. We connected that rooftop water, and also few individual homes. We connected the rooftop water. So people are now seeing and making sense of this whole thing as to how, as a masjid, they are water intensive. They've understood that each person needs at least 1.5 liters every time they come in for prayers, and more than 1,000 people visit this masjid on a weekly basis. And the need for tankers, and they were buying tankers, and today they don't, because their bore wells have improved. So they sort of connect this, and a simple thing like a rooftop water is keeping this well sustainable. It's 2 years now. This is another well which was completely abandoned. It's about 200 years old, and it's in the middle of a new area, new development that's coming up, and there's a whole lot of clean water on the roads, and just creating an urban flood, and there's a well right here. So we created these trenches and indirect recharge systems around the well, so we don't put this well, this storm water directly into the well, but we recharge it indirectly. Earth has its own way to process this water. It has multiple stages of recharge. So first collects the silt is arrested, then you have coal chambers, and we have sand and gravel chambers. So after this gets recharged. So it's a great success story to see that this well restoration has helped 1,000 apartment community which was coming right next to it, and they didn't have to buy a single tanker throughout the construction. So that's wonderful, right? See how we are trying to create not just a successful story, but we are trying to create a context for people around to see and actually see the results of what can happen when we, connect water to, connect urban stories to water stories. I wish urban development was actually connected to these water stories, and we didn't ignore the streams, we didn't ignore the nalas, we didn't ignore the drains. I wish we didn't ignore our lakes and wells too. So by doing this, the apartment community today, we convinced them to do 2 lakh liters of water storage for rainwater, and 15 injecting bore wells, that is reverse bore wells, because it's a hard strata, we have hard rock here. So we identified 15 different points for them. And the builder took it up, and the buildings and the entire community is zero discharge. So we worked on this well, right next to it, 1,000 apartment community, and right across the road, there is a Goshala. There were 3 wells that we restored there. The Goshala actually was dependent heavily on tankers. They have 2,000 cows that they have. They had wells, but they didn't desilt. It was in a bad shape. We desilted with crowdfunding and got funds to make sure. And then we made the Goshala also connect all the rooftop water to these restored wells. And today, they're not so dependent on tankers. All the bore wells around these wells are working fine. And there are more than 100 children that live in this Goshala. They actually saw what can happen from a completely dump yard of a well to a restored well today, and how their bore wells work. And, they have this bond with the cows there, and they're so happy to see clean water, that their cows get. They're like, they're very close, emotionally attached now to the well water and the cows that they pet every day. So there's a sort of emotional connect, and they would never, they would do everything to protect this water. And this is the other Goshala well. So if you see the previous picture from here, this was the street, and this was the road from where this well right on the road was restored. Right next to that, an apartment community, and across the road, a 60 acres Goshala. Now we started covering ground like this. It's not just the step well, but everything around should also become water rich. That's the aim. In an urban scenario where we have so much of population and people, we have to bring this sense in a big way and understand how these traditional water systems work even today. Look at their far-sighted vision of our ancestors, that they built these wells so that it works for hundreds of years and it serves the generations ahead. Today, any solution we build, we don't know if it works beyond 50 years or 100 years. That was not their thought process. So we lost this language today, and we have to bring it back. So it's not just a well restoration, it's a lot more. Bringing the traditional knowledge, bringing that brilliance today to safeguard ourselves and future generations. So this is another well in another area called Kondapur. This is also part of the block that we are working. So we have targeted 3 blocks, and we have started covering ground. While we don't ignore the other wells across the city, that's also part of a block. So we keep covering ground in each block. Whatever opportunity that we get, we try to understand and make it happen. So while we do this in the city, also communicating with enthusiastic collectors in different districts, creating interesting stories of connecting these heritage water bodies to the local cultural activities that happen, festivals that happen. So here is one where we work with collector Hari Chandana for the Narayanpet. We've restored about 3 step wells. We are on the way to restore another 5 to 6 of them now with her. And also, we curated an event around the step well, the Batkama event, that happens during the Dashara. It's a Telangana tradition. So we curated an event for Batkama and also had dancers and beautifully displayed this whole step well as a cultural center. And today, even the 75th Independence Day, they celebrated around the well. So the well has become a center today for various, national events and also local cultural events. So these are success stories which we're really, really proud of. This is another well in Narayanpet where we, there's a deep festival called Kartika Deepam, which we celebrated, very much in the south. So we did that, and the whole village came together. See all these decorations that you see, the villagers, their kids, they came together, and we sort of made an outline. They all worked together. The whole day we were together making this event happen, and they played their folk songs and they danced, and it was such a beautiful event or coming together. And so this is attached to a temple, and they want to do this every year and promote cleanliness of this well, fences being planned around this well, and a lot more. So while doing these well restorations, we also support a lot of livelihoods by doing these projects, because this is another important factor that through COVID, we've supported hundreds of people who didn't have jobs. Because irrigation works and anything connected to water, we had permissions to work. We supported several families through COVID is a happy thing, I would like to say. Last of all, I would like to say, how do we go about well restorations after this much of knowledge on ground of what works and what doesn't work? How do you work with the government? How do you work with communities that are not interested? How do you pull up a success story in an urban scenario? So here is what we understood. So this is a well restoration that we are doing right now in the middle of the Secunderabad, which is a twin city with Hyderabad. So this was again a well that was sitting in garbage for 42 plus years. We were able to identify this well and took over and understood how to get this whole well restored holistically. So here is a little bit of the journey of this step well, because this will tell us also what were those challenges and how do you work with these stakeholders. So what we started doing as a startup, the Rainwater Project is a startup I also did along with working as an NGO, because a startup was required to create that platform. An enterprise was required to connect with the government, to get mentors on board, to get funding, faculties. There was several things that can happen with a startup. We have access to grants today from the state up to the national level. So all these were the reasons why a startup was founded, and also just giving awareness with an NGO was not really, I was not able to convert on the ground conversion is not happening for restoring these step wells or rainwater harvesting. So an enterprise was required to build these solutions, to give proposals, to create such consortiums where we can work together and figure out how to crack this problem. So working with the government, how do you work with the government? So today, any step well we identify, we create MOUs with the government. We say we will help raise funds. But once we do phase 1 of the well, then we go to phase 2, and then we ask government also to play a role and sort of nudge each stakeholder, and they come in because everyone, if you create a win for the government, all the public representatives, we are seeing that they are also coming along. The first thing is, okay, it's very difficult to work with the government, because I have worked with the government on ground more than 8 to 10 years. It's extremely difficult. But today I have a method how to work with them, how to get them along, and how to create a winning moment even for the government, so that it becomes a success story for the government at large, and how they can scale this whole thing, how to bring policymakers on board. For today, they're talking step wells. Today, the government of Telangana is talking very high of restoring step wells. So it's become part of their policy to restore step wells. So these are great success stories we've been able to get. But here is a consortium that developed over time. It didn't happen overnight. How do you work with community? The working with community on ground for almost 8 to 10 years through well restorations, through lake restorations, through common area rainwater harvesting, taught us many things on ground, how communities react, how they don't connect with you initially, but how to get them to connect with you, how to win their trust, and then get them on board. And how some people may still be negative. You can never convert some people, but some people who are positive, you can work with them and create a winning story. So where to fight, where to let go, all these things we started learning and understanding on ground. So today we have a clear strategy of how to work with communities. Now, funding and resources, we realized we can have many aspirations, but without funding and resources, we can do nothing. And funding and resources, initially my understanding as an NGO was go and find CSR funds with corporates. But today I've understood a school can give us funds. We can do crowdsourcing. We can create funding platforms. We can, create events which can collect funds. So there are different ways and methodologies to do this. So we've understood many ways of doing this today. And today I cannot say, okay, it's very difficult to find a fund. No, you can find a fund, but there needs to be a strategy. Initial hand holding from our enterprise we do for any of these step wells. So we start doing the clearing up, we start removing the debris, we started showcasing something for the funders, and then they get interested in understanding. We started talking to them about impact and what can happen, because we have success stories that we've created earlier. So we start talking about what is that impact that we can bring with a well restoration. And then come several alliances with NGOs, with other NGOs. Today we are working with Vasan, which is working towards watershed restoration across cities in India. So we have an alliance with them, we work with them, we have a funding platform with them, we have several hydrogeology experts from them who handhold us. And because to understand for me as a citizen that a spring well is something else, a recharge well is something else. A source well needs recharge systems around to restore, water in the well. So these are on-ground understanding, but understanding them with experts also made a lot of sense as we went ahead in the journey. And there are a lot of independent consultants, like I said, in conservation, in architecture. Which well needs which faculty initially. We need something called condition mapping is what I understood with the Bapughat restoration. I understood there's something called condition mapping that happens in the conservation process. And you have to understand the structure and then understand the conditions of the well and see priority wise what needs to be restored, what is low priority, what is high priority, what is medium priority. While I understood the process, I don't drive this. Since I understood, I can work with conservation architects today and sort of understand that methodology and process and, work with them just from a bird's eye view, understanding the problem, because we're not working only with conservation architects when we restore a well. We are working with funders, we are working with communities, we are working with government, we are working with mentors, and a lot of freelance professionals also. We started working with photographers who do visual documentation. And visual documentation, I understood a certain way from previous projects, but today I understand it in a different way. What should be captured? What is critical to be captured through implementation? And what is that visual story that we want to tell tomorrow? And what was the condition of the well earlier? So the visual documentation is very critical to understanding or restoring a well. And artists and dancers and freelance, a lot of people that are artists can tie up with this in a different way, not just showcasing after a restoration, but even in the initial steps. Like one of my friend who is an watercolor artist in US, and she's a celebrated water color artist in US, and she came forward seeing this well restoration. I said, how can you help? And she said, I would do a watercolor painting for you, use it for outreach. Because at that point, I was figuring out funding. So, I wanted to launch an idea called Project Shakti, where 100 influential women in the city can take up this project, and each of them donates a certain amount, and we can make this well happen. So for that, she did a few outreach sketches and that, so which went into a brochure. A dancer, my classmate Meenakshi Srinivasan from Chennai. She did an outreach video for us. So any corporate outreach, we use this video and we talk about what is that emotional connect with the well and why we need to restore it. And she did it beautifully with our dance performance. So we used an artist right from outreach. And tomorrow when we celebrate this well, we probably hopefully can call her and make her do a dance performance here at this well. So they also become an integral part of this well restoration. She's also following up with me at different milestones that has happened with the well. And there are a lot of researchers, innovators, startups, how to create the cleaner water in this well. And because there's a lot of algae that's happening with sunlight. So what are those organic methods that we can apply? So there's a lot of researchers also involved in this. And IIIT Hyderabad, Dr. Pradeep, who is into structures, he helps. He's my go-to person to understand if there's any structural issues. And of course I cannot not name Dr. Architect Suryanana Murthy garu, who prepared the dossier for Ramappa temple, which has got the UNESCO tag today. He's helping us restore a lot of learnings through the conservation process. A very small tips that I learned from him. So I'm not going to conserve wells, but I've understood this process. So this kind of a consortium, somebody has to have a bird's eye view of this. I realized if one entity like us, or like a social enterprise, is the bridge between people and the government, if we can bring together such a consortium, we can do a great restoration project. And so connecting with communities through several events, getting public representatives to give them talks, to sort of encourage, motivate them, because a 1 year's process of removing garbage and working around is not easy for people to understand or go with, but be part of the cultural events, understand their emotional connect, go to their memories. These are ways to connect with community and enabling their children to understand what is this water bodies, and connecting with elders in that community. And they came for cleanups. So it was such a beautiful moment to see them, and it was so encouraging to see them. In COVID, they came up for cleanups, and connecting, of course, with our ministers. KTR Garu, he's an amazing person who supports such kind of restorations. We are lucky to have him in this term, who actually supports, and Srinivas Talasani Garu, who's also a minister, and the principal secretary, and several bureaucrats. Arvind Garu was a principal secretary and special chief secretary for the state today. Literally, he's like a message away, and he connects with us and he replies. This is so encouraging to see, because of the work we've done, because of the genuine effort on ground that we do. We can connect with bureaucrats, and they have taken up the recent development for the Bansilal Pit and the several challenges and learnings. So every step well restoration we do, we also release a book which covers everything from our day one to the last day. What has happened through this restoration, like talking about the consortium, how did this develop, and who did we connect, and who funded us. And in this restoration especially, we've been able to get all the power cables, which you see bunches of them around these heritage structures, and it's such an eyesore. Today we were able to get, with government support, we were able to get them underground. And also the well restoration is not just a well restoration today. We are able to redevelop this entire area. Everyone has got sewage connections, water connections, better road, better hygienic surroundings today. And you see this Ganesha temple, which was actually attached to the periphery of the well. We were able to convince the committee, a temple committee and community, and we were able to imagine removing these small temple or religious structures in the middle of roads, and such is such a challenge today. But here we were able to connect with them. There was a deinstallation ceremony, and today was a reinstallation ceremony of this Ganesha. We placed it appropriately in a place which is away from this well periphery, and this well is left alone. Even today we face a lot of challenges. People want more parking space and that. So we have to always draw a balance, and a person, or we need an enterprise to address these things, because All of this makes the restoration holistic. It's not just getting the well water, or it's not just an architectural restoration. It is restoration that is wholesome, that is sustainable, that will be long lasting, that will be a story to tell. And we also bring back this vision with this, that few hundred years this has to be sustainable, and people respect water, connecting back people to water. Something that was sitting in garbage for 42 years in front of their homes today is a beautiful well, and each one of them respects this effort that we've taken today. um, these are all our funders and different meetings that we have with the government, with communities. Initially, we used to think it's a huge challenge to work with public representatives, but today we've understood that if we can create a winning situation for them, they also come along and help us, because without their help, we wouldn't have been creating a hygienic, redevelopment in this place, or creating a precinct development around this well would have been impossible without the minister's support, without the local community support, and also our government support, right up to the principal secretary, to the zonal commissioner, who is literally on ground every other day. We call him and he supports us. So creating such success stories are not easy, but we have to create this winning stories for water, to make people understand that it's not, development is not just about buildings, but also the unbuilt environment we ignore often. So in this development, we also, while we developing the precinct, we are also understanding recharge points, and understood the strata where we have to do reverse bore wells, because all of it has become concreted around this step well. It's already encroached and concreted, but so what is a way to get all the rooftop water into the ground? So we are trying to create this, cobbled walkway, and creating a storm channel around this well, and getting back water into, recharge around the source well. Because what's the point of restoration if you have not restored water? And this water should last forever. We have to understand this. And also working on condition mapping, conservation plan. This time we had Shariu Murray from Bombay. She came down and helped us with the condition mapping, and that. It's so nice to connect with these youngsters and understand every thread of how this happens. And two, architects who are local, Keshav and Bindu, who came on board, understanding history, and architect Sneha from Deccan Amalgam. I can never forget her. Till now, she's a go-to person. Anything I want, a design, problem or an issue on ground, which I go to her. An initial conceptualization that a precinct plan that she developed was so brilliant what we could do. So that's what I mean by a consortium. An urban planner, an architect which comes on board, brings so much value here. But the architect or a conservation architect directly to connect with the government don't have these kind of energies to go there, follow up and get things on board, or get a funding on board. So you need enterprises like us who brings everything to the table, and everyone can work like a surgeon. I mean, we delegate work to each one of them, and then the projects come together so beautifully. And also, what do we do with lighting? What type of fence do we design so that people don't throw, people can't spit. You don't create a surface where people can't spit, where people can't write on this fence, on this railing. So what is that kind of railing? What is the kind of behavior around? What is the precinct around? And who are the people around? What kind of behavior change that we build? What kind of lighting concepts that we develop? Kunal Shah, who's a lighting designer, helped us create this concept of how the wells were lit with diyas those days. How can we bring this concept? So this is so beautiful, and thankful to him for having him on board. And then Sanjay Gupta, who came as an architect to develop the precinct, gave us built on Sneha's plan. And then today we have planned an amphitheater, history interpretation center, small cafe, and also a ground and seating areas for the community, so that community events can happen here, or any public events can happen. And how do you create parking for tourists? Now, that was a challenge here. So we convinced the public representatives and minister to allocate a land. So this is what happens when you connect with the whole story. Now there's parking for this well, if somebody wants to visit this well. So why are we restoring the structure? So that the water is safe. While we work towards water conservation, our focus is on water, but the water will be saved if the structure is safe. The structure and water will be safe if we create a related precinct, and this will become sustainable in terms of water. If communities see this winning story of how their health has improved, many people come back to us and say they had wheezing problems, they had respiratory diseases, and today it's a cleaner space for them outside, and they're feeling better in terms of health. So if we create such stories for them, they also sort of stand by and handhold. These are all things you can see what we did for the precinct development. It took a year to build all this. I mean, maybe something that takes 15, 20 years, we've been able to achieve in 1 year by this consortium method, by creating a strategy to understand how we can do. And media support, I tell you, has been amazing. How many people have covered our stories in print and digital media, on YouTube channels? This is also a beautiful outreach. See, we don't pay these people. We don't, we don't go to them as an enterprise or an NGO. I have never gone to any journalist to cover a story. They have always come to us for the kind of work we do. But really thankful to each one of them, how they have covered and understood and put an emotional thread to it, and right up to reaching to the Prime Minister of India, who talked about this temple that we are restoring. It was a happy winning moment. And also creating impact and awareness for the future generations, not just school children, but also our youngsters who are young budding designers, young hydrogeologists, young designers who can create these kind of success stories, and connecting not just to the built environment. And we are very good as architects and designers in distributing water inside the building. But what happens? Where do you get this water? What is the source? We are never connected to. So here we are talking about source sustainability. If a building needs a certain amount of water, it comes from the borewell. But what do you do to sustain this borewell source? This is what we as planners and designers should start rethinking today, and see how much water we can recycle, how we should go zero discharge with rainwater, how we can make the groundwater rich, because putting a building is not just done without doing, without planning for water, because we are responsible for the building and everything that happens within the building. If there's no water there tomorrow, nobody is going to live there. So we need to understand that environment is not somewhere. We are part of the environment, and as designers, we need to appreciate. And a lot of people I know who are friends who are making a huge effort to understand water and sort of make this effort with the clients. Though, it's not a winning moment for everybody. They are putting efforts, but a lot more people need to do this, because we create these stories. Now we are connecting with academic institutions, understanding this block level approach, understanding water, and understanding what is water in a block. How can you, what is your land use, and what is water, how much of pipe supply, what is the groundwater that's getting extracted, how much of water that's going waste without getting recycled, how much of it can be recycled, how much urban flooding can be reduced today, and how much of our cities are concreted. More than 50-60% of our cities are concreted. 60-70% of our sewage goes untreated. How to create solutions for a building as responsible designers, as responsible citizens. So all of these, when the academic institutions and students are connected, they get a large level awareness, because they are working with on-ground stories. These are not stories which are out of the book. They're actually working on ground to make this happen. And here I should mention Bindu Chandana, who is faculty in JNFAU, connected with her, and architect Ivan, and architect Tausif, and architect Abhishek and Siddhartha, who all came together, and especially these mapping of wells in districts. We started creating these tourist route where it's some sort of a Jagriti Yatra for step wells. We find these step wells, but there's a lot of history that's strewn around. So engaging with colleges and academic institutions to make these the stories for water and create this heritage, tour, or connect them with eco forests or a forest belt that is there. There are very many step wells within the forest as well, and create these sort of tourist circuits backyards which are winning for the district. I mean, they can, an economic development will happen. As Hyderabad as a city, we don't have many places around us, but we can create these kind of places that we can go visit and be aware of these step wells and sort of protect. So not just in our city alone, but also across Telangana. I believe that right now I'm thinking there may be more than 700, 800 step wells we have not even unearthed yet. So this is a revelation to us that we have so many step wells even in Telangana, and we need to support and restore. So involving students, involving the younger generations, involving the bureaucrats, involving collectors, and connecting again to the funding sources. I mean, we have the Lingampet step well, which are working with Infosys Foundation. They are willing to support, and Kandipet Welfare Association, Welfare Society, headed by Rajri. I mean, I should, mention her, because without her support, Bansilalpet well restoration would not have happened today. So funding also is a very big thing that we need to connect to while we create these success stories. So everyone is important in this game, and if you look at about 100 people in that consortium we are connected to for one well restoration, but we are making it happen holistically. These are other wells that we are working in districts today. 4 districts we have been working with district collectors and identifying wells with them, and identifying with them with also public representatives, and connecting to funders from our city. And there are individual donors, like one of our friends in Chennai, he said, Chandru, he said he will pick up a well and help us restore. So we constantly, now it's the reverse. People are outreaching to us saying, okay, can we help restore a step well with you? Tell us how to donate or how to be part of it. I'm a photographer, I would like to be part of this. Or I'm a dancer, I would like to be part of this. So they are seeing another story emerge with these step wells. I think it's been a long monologue, and thank you so much for hearing me out today and listening to this story. I wish there are a few takeaways for everyone, and we don't look at step well restoration as one entity alone. It's a large network of streams, and the entire ecosystem, people, society, everything gets attention with one step well restoration. Thank you so much, and thank you, Supriya, for outreaching to me and making this happen.
Thank you, Kalpana ji. It was indeed a very amazing, inspiring talk. The lovely designs, the way you have unearthed them, which were hidden under so many negative aspects, but you managed to convert them into positive along with community involvement. That was indeed wonderful. I would just like to check with you if we have a couple of questions. Do you have some more time to answer them? Should we give another 5 minutes?
We can start taking the questions. Either you read it out.
Yeah, I can read out from the chat box, because there's a lot of enthusiasm, some very good, excellent comments as well, which you can go through later in the chat history. But we'll focus on the questions for now. Before that, I would request all to just switch on your video for a bit so that we can take a group photo, since all of us are here together. And indeed a memorable moment where all of us have come together, though on an online platform, to celebrate our traditional water systems. We just give some time for all of us to switch on your video if you feel comfortable.
Nice. To chat to karo, thank you.
And since we have quite a few attendees, I'm going to take a minute to ensure everybody is covered in the pictures. Thank you all. I'll move on to the questions. I'll read out a couple of them and maybe you can answer them together so as to save time. We have a question from Neeta about how did you go about the permissions from the government and how is sustainability ensured? I think community involvement, contribution, accountability is absolutely required. There's another from Priyanka Panjwani about were all these projects government funded? And there's another from Devyani. During the initial analysis, were you also able to identify the shallow water aquifer systems? Were they affected or polluted due to the urbanization in the areas surrounding the wells? Yeah, I think we have a couple for books, reference books on this theme. So I'm just not going to read each of them separately, but you could make a general comment. Though someone did mention Dr. Murvanchikar's amazing book on this subject. Thank you, Kalpana ji. You can answer them and then maybe we could take a few more. Thanks.
Sure. So how do we get permissions from the government? That's a very good question to ask. So most of the time we happen to go and because of our work on ground for almost 8 to 10 years, we're somehow connected with government in different layers, different departments where as it is connected because of the work we are already doing. So at least they hear us out. I mean, whether they say yes or no is another thing, but definitely hear us out. And because they really take time. Like today we were at one of the parks for rainwater harvesting as part of Amrut 2.0 with working with Ministry of Urban Affairs. We just had to make a call to them and we were able to access and go. But initially, this question I wouldn't have been able to answer so easily. It was really tough to get a permission from the government. Because first thing is to understand the ownership of this well, right? It can be in a religious institution, it can be in public properties, or it can be in private properties. So once you understand, then you know where to go. For the local administration, local municipal administration, we usually go to the top level bureaucracy and sort of explain our initiative and such. So then they instruct the lower level officers or in their respective zones for us to go and meet. Again, it's not as simple as I say. It needs a lot of follow-ups and take their time and go there. That's why I said we need one person like us. We as a social enterprise, we need to be that bridge because we should be able to volunteer this kind of time. This doesn't happen just like that. So even if I know the people have recommended, or I can get in time with them, it needs several follow-ups. But once we have made the higher bureaucracy understood of what we are doing and create a success story. See, it is just often one success story that you create, which will be the toughest. But once you've created a success story, it's not very difficult for you to outreach to them because they already trust you. They know that you have done a certain kind of work. And we work with very non-confrontational. See, many times when you go to the government, you sort of, that activist in you comes out, right? Your tone changes and you're like, you're not doing anything about it. The moment you talk like this, you're shunned away. I mean, believe me, you will not be entertained in any of the departments because you have to learn ways to work with the government. That's the success story. The moment you have a confronting note and you want to meet an officer, that's not happening. So this is learning from experience, and we work like Gandhiji. It really, non-confrontational ways to make things happen, and slowly it will move and it will happen. So getting permission for the Bansilal Pet step well, initially when I was outreaching to the government, they said they will start the cleanup. We were able to remove first of all, the encroachments on top of the garbage, right? We had 4 homeless families living on top of this garbage. So getting them dignified homes, this was the first challenge. So this again, without government's help, we can't do it. So this happened. And then they said they will start cleaning up. So we were fine. But after 4 or 5 weeks, they realized they need about 80 people to work with them. And from the sanitation team itself is only 200 in that zone. And they have 400 complaints every day to attend. So it is not possible. So then they abandoned. Then they said they will take up, in a week, 2 weeks. It went on and on. Then I realized that it's better for me to create an MOU with them saying that I will raise the funds. I will make sure this well can happen. You don't have to do anything but give me a letter. Then they were very encouraged with this thought that they don't have to, because if you go to any bureaucrat, they have hundreds of problems they deal with every day. See, it's very, very challenging. I work with several officers, commissioners. I see that the day is so challenging. The point is, it's very easy to complain, but when you go into their shoes, you understand how challenging it is. So getting an MOU, getting a letter from them was simple. Raising funds and not expecting all of the wells. I had a question that who did government fund? None of the wells government have funded so far. Okay, the precinct development, we develop a well. Now the precinct development for the Pansilal pit, the initial 6 weeks or 2 months of work that they have done, removing the garbage and carting out the garbage and working on the development of the precinct, HMDA under Principal Secretary Arvind Garg, they have taken it upon themselves to develop the entire precinct. Not only the step well, but also restoring heritage around. So that's all government work. So I cannot put a number to that. I cannot say that this is the fund they gave, but they've handheld like, and which is something which is worth crores of rupees. And this is happening in a year's time. Something that will happen in 20 years is happening in 1 year. It's because of government support. So the government support need not be in funding form, right? We should get them on board for several development things that can happen, which is essentially funding, but not funding in their terms. So these are little things we need to understand, or tips about books that we have written. We only the second book is happening right now. The other book on lakes and that, we've just collect this and create this book, and when we inaugurate the well also, we distribute a few books, because we have to get a publishing house on board. We need a lot of funding for that, and we need to do outreach in that sense. But we have a great content writer with us now, Anu, who said we can actually sell these or put these books on Amazon, right? But there again, we have to find how this can happen. And the book also needs certain refinement before it goes on these platforms. So it will be soon available on Amazon, but anyone who can directly outreach to me, or I can just send the PDF of the book to Supriya, anyone can outreach to her and find this book. But these books are very important, I understood, because for another person to take all these efforts and restore a well, I cannot tell the whole 9 yards to every person, but if it is all recorded in the book, that book itself is an inspiration. And the book does not only talk about successes. It talks about a lot of failures, what we've lost, what we couldn't make happen, but what is another way we found, an alternate method to make it happen. So these things are very important, for people to understand. So yeah, books, that is the thing. We are still finding someone who can publish our books. And this time, the Bansilal Pet, we have all our team members, are writing a chapter in this. This is an idea again with Hyderabad Design Forum. Yashwant sir wanted all of us to write a chapter in the book that he is documenting. But it's nice to involve even the interns that work with us. There's an intern who came from UK this year. She's written a chapter on sustainability of this well, an economic value of this well, an economic impact. So it's great that she's connecting now to her education in the UK. So it's fantastic learning for her, and she's curated this chapter. So it's just amazing how a book can tell a story with different perspectives. It's not only my perspective. I can put together a book with someone, but so many perspectives I won't be able to get, in their view, what did they think, so any other questions?
Thank you. We'll just take maybe another 2 more, and yeah, because we've already.
So an analysis, how do you understand the shallow aquifer systems? Yes, we do. We have experts who are into hydrogeology. We have Ram from Vasan. He's worked across the country on watershed management. So he's very much with us in all of these efforts with the citywide and also with districts. And they have a team we engage with, and we also have a hydrogeologist as part of our team. So they also bring several learnings on ground. So yes, we do understand, and we understand how much of pollution has happened. There are several borewells which has black water, have clean water today. So we understand the water quality, the spring water from the recent Bansilal Pet step well that I'm talking about. This water was tested by the groundwater department of Telangana. and they confirm that it's clean water. So we also, take care of the quality of water. What is the quality of water that's coming into this well? Because if it is polluted water, what is the source? We want to arrest that source. Even the temple nearby, the Abhishekam, and that water was directly connected to the well. In the masjid, the Gachibowli well, the masjid's one of the sewage lines was connected to the step well. Only when we removed garbage, we unearthed these stories, and we diverted these. So we are very, very worried about not contaminating the aquifer. So we do study the aquifer and understand interesting aquifers also, how these wells happened, and how today's scientific knowledge of even the NRSC maps, if we have them on these points where we have step wells, it clearly shows us that these were very strong stream systems. I mean, that's where the well was dug. I mean, they didn't have the kind of technology that we have today just with intuition. These are very, very interesting to understand. So I have I've become like jack of all arts today. A little bit of every story is understood.
Indeed, I think the crux is looking at it in a holistic way. So you've managed to cover so many different aspects, and I think that's a reason behind the success as well.
And I think each of this is
yeah.
important. We cannot ignore even one of this. Even one element we ignore and we call it a restoration, it's not going to work in the future.
True. So we have a question from Roshni about how do you ensure that these wells stay the way you restored? There's another, I'll just take two more and I think we'll stop with the questions. The other is about from Richa Mishra about many step wells today in urban areas have been subjected to development of colonies, etc. What could be a possible way ahead in those cases? And another question, the last one is from Lohit Jain about, are you working for step wells in other states or any future plans for other states?
Definitely.
Regarding the last bit, I'll just add my 2 cents. We do have presentations from different states in India, so I'm hoping you will get to know about the initiatives there. But I would, of course, like to hear from Kalpana ji also about what efforts they are envisaging in future.
So how do we create sustenance for the wells? Well, every well we've restored, we've tried to develop the precinct in a certain way. Not everywhere there is an opportunity to create an interpretation center or create a garden. Not everywhere this is possible. But whatever, if you have any garbage-laden area, or if you recently the Gachibowli step well itself with TEDx Hyderabad, we were able to paint the walls all around in the precinct just to create the clean surroundings, because we have a story wall for the well. Around that story wall, we sort of got kids to paint the map of the older map of the Gachibowli. So while painting, they're also asking us questions. So where is this? What road is this? And things like that. So developing the precinct is one thing to keep it sustainable. And we always find owners for the well before we start restoring. Like the Gachibowli step well, we made sure that the masjid signed up for taking up the responsibility of taking care of the step well. Goshala wells, the Goshala is taken care of. And what is on the street somewhere abandoned, like it's nobody's property, we handhold them. We sort of de-silt and we take care, whatever we've restored, where we don't have owners, we are creating a sustainable story. We are making sure that they're all clean. And now we see that hardly any garbage is coming into the well. So this is happening. So hand-holding, not just restoring, hand-holding, we're also educating the donors that hand-holding is very important. It's not enough that you supported us for well restoration. Please support us for the next 2 years or 3 years, supporting basic things that we do for the well, making sure that it's kept clean. But once you start creating this sort of behavior change around the well, people don't want to throw anymore. People see a cleaner well, cleaner property. They're seeing better health impacts. They're seeing improved groundwater. They are slowly hand holding. I mean, that's how you create sustainability. But where it needs hand holding, we're not ignoring what we have restored. But finding owners for the wells is very, very key and very important. And also working on PPP model, like, public-private partnership, which we are taking to the government this time, like, the interpretation center or a cafe that can actually handhold in the entire restoration or upkeep of the well, right? While they run the cafe, They also are taking care of the toilets. They're creating public toilets, taking care of the parking, and also the gardens, and having a lifeguard at the well. All of this, we are requesting donors. We are requesting, this public-private model which can work. So we are also experimenting, I would say. I mean, right now we are working on the 14th well restoration. So 14 wells is our knowledge. And we are trying to see different templates that we are working. So what works, what is a good template? We're also understanding that probably by the time we are at 20th or 30th well, we will be better equipped, to create these templates. So today we know that a school can, in that local area, can pick up and restore a well and handhold the sustenance of the well. So things like that, different stories. Everything is not, it's not a cookie cutter solution. I hope you all understood. It's not really a cookie cutter solution, but having a strategy or a consortium is definitely cookie cutter. I mean, this is something we have to do or work towards. Yeah. Did I miss any questions, Supriya?
Yeah, I think we are done for now. Yes, I'm sure there'll be quite a few more, but we have got requests for your email ID. You let us know if it's okay to put it in the chat box here, or how would you like to go about it?
Yeah, I will just type it. Any other questions I would like to take? Because interacting makes it more motivational.
Yes, there's a question about if you would like to share the presentation, and about future plans, if you are planning to, cover any other sites, cities, states. That
Yes, we would like to, and like someone asked, like, what about other step wells, or what about so many abandoned step wells? That was a question, right? A lot of development is happening, and people are closing up these wells. So by creating these success stories in your own cities and states, will highlight the need and want for these step wells, and how it can create impact, how it can become cultural and heritage centers today. By making this happen, we can support the 100 wells indirectly by creating these success stories. But by doing nothing, we're not supporting anything. By creating these success stories, we can actually create an example and save another 100 wells which are abandoned, and also connecting with policy makers and making it part of their agenda. This is very key. And when we create such holistic stories, even it's good for the government to showcase, it's good for the public representative to showcase, it's great for them. I mean, I don't mind them saying that all these wells they have restored holistically. I don't mind at all, because it's okay. I mean, every time, we need not run behind name and fame. Initially, that thing is also there, right? Oh, you feel great when you're talked about and that. But I think we've crossed that bridge also now. It's okay. Whoever owns it up and what, as long as we create these stories and we are able to inspire stakeholders to be part of it in a big way, because government is the only entity that can scale these models, because we can work on a few, we can create certain templates, we can say that how we can work on it. But as citizens, we can do only so much. But if the government picks it up, that's going to go to the next level. So constantly inspiring them and working with them is also, something that we should learn, and non-confrontational methods completely. I mean, we might not agree with them at all, but we have to be non-confrontational, because many times we feel like confronting even with the community around, because they're not doing the right things. They're asking for a space of the well to be a parking lot rather than leaving alone the well. So those are times when the activist in you comes alive, but you have to rest that activist and not go on that fire mode, because it won't happen. We have to work in very, very careful, non-confrontational ways and strategize. See, there was one sewage line into a lake that after restoring it for 4 years, a new sewage line a builder had put. There was and he had a political hold behind, so he was able to do that. We were unable to remove the sewage line when we don't know what to do. Immediately we thought out of the box. I went and understood that building is being used for OYO rooms, and we wrote an email to the OYO founder and we said, can you support this? Immediately he connected to the Telangana OYO head and he said, they spoke to the builder and they said that if you don't do a legal drainage, we will revoke the agreement with OU. And that whole building, 6-story building, was ready for OU. And he had no choice but to do a legal drainage system. Otherwise, he's letting go of the agreement. So different, the same problems need not have same solutions. Today, we have to think out of the box and, strategize things in different ways to create that success. And a lot of patience, perseverance, a lot of seva, that seva mode you have to be in that mode to accept so many things, to process so many things, and to deliver. We need to have a certain mindset. And I tell you, I have changed as a person also, in this journey. The kind of transformation that has happened in me is just unbelievable. Because how you're directly connected with communities, and you that larger responsibility, once it sets in, you become so humble, you become so grounded. You're working with a common man. That thing, once it sets in, everything is like everything is accepted easily. That fight, there's no fidgeting this thing. There's only finding solutions. So I call myself water. You put a block in front of me, I'll find a way and still flow on. And there's no stopping our initiatives or not working around. We may find roadblocks, but we can find solutions as well.
Thank you. What a lovely message. I think all of us have got a lot of insights today. I would now like to request Dr. Ajit Vartak sir to please do the vote of thanks. Dr. Ajit Vartak from Maharashtra Vriksha Samvardhini.
On behalf of Maharashtra Vriksha Samvardhini, Pune, INTAC and BIF, I would like to thank water warrior Kalpana Rameshji for sharing her experiences while working with local community and government personnel for water conservation in urban areas, mainly in Hyderabad city. We know all big cities in our country are facing water scarcity problem, and today's memorable speech by Kalpana ji will definitely help all those water conservation people in the urban areas. I also thank the audience for joining this evening session. Tomorrow, we have third lecture in this World Water Week 2022 by Dr. Madhavan from Deen Dayal Petroleum University, Gandhinagar, Gujarat. He will speak about the cultural preservation and value of felsic igneous rocks used as steps in temple tanks of Tamil Nadu. So tomorrow we'll be meeting at the same time, 6 p.m. with the same link and Zoom, as well as at live YouTube channel also. Thank you, madam, very much. Wonderful presentation, and as madam told that it was a really memorable speech.